Hello, friends. Welcome back to HeartScapes, where we are practicing the system of Reiki at the intersection of self-reflection, spiritual practice, and social action. My name is Michaela. Thank you so much for joining me again today here in the studio and on today's free monthly community class, A Sweet Taste of HeartScapes. This is an offering that we offer both live and on the recorded version every first Wednesday of the month, 10 a.m. Pacific time. And so you're welcome to join us live for a future class or find the replay here on YouTube somewhere around mid-month. For January's class, we're going to be looking at the system of Reiki as a self-practice, looking at healing from the inside out and why it's important to orient towards Reiki first and foremost as self-practice. In February, we're going to look at the nourishing art of ritual and the role of ritual in our daily life and within the system of Reiki, and learn some techniques for creating spontaneous ritual in your life. I'll put the links to both of those classes down below if you want to join us live, or you can find the replay here on YouTube somewhere around mid-month. Generally, in these classes, we're exploring aspects of the system of Reiki and specifically how they show up in our daily life, how they intersect with things that we are working through, living with, confronted with in day-to-day life. And I choose the topics based on things that people are bringing to me, things people are sharing, that they're asking to work through in our sessions, things that I'm noticing out in the world that people are struggling with or succeeding with. And I always am very open to suggestions from you, the folks who are paying attention, who are participating, following along, of topics that you would find interesting. So if there's something that you would like to explore through the lens of the system of Reiki, you can drop that in comments below and I'll take a look. It's really a wide open field. I tend to be able to connect anything to the system of Reiki. So with that, let us get started with today's topic, which is one that is near and dear to my heart and one that is very, very prominent, very fertile inside of the system of Reiki, which is the topic of intuition, the phenomenon of intuition, how it operates in our life, how we can strengthen this capacity inside of us in a variety of ways, specifically though with the system of Reiki, and what is the, how does intuition show up from the perspective of the system of Reiki? Before we dive into that topic, just want to share a little bit of context for those of you who might be new to this class, new to this channel. I have been practicing the system of Reiki for about the past 9 years, practicing it specifically from the perspective of its Japanese origins for about the past 6 years and teaching for 5. It is my great joy and my great love, and I am just thrilled to have been able to work with hundreds of people from all across the world in that time, sharing Reiki in a variety of ways, and working very intimately with over 60 people in our in-depth classes that we offer here in the studio at HeartScapes in Davis, California, and online wherever you might be in the world. We have recently launched a year-long deep dive Reiki learning program. And this program walks you through all 3 levels of the system of Reiki with one-on-one support, small group peer support, special topics classes, and a whole lot more. It is your comprehensive Reiki education, specifically from the perspectives of the Japanese origins of this system. And we really dive into so many breadths and depths of topics in a spacious, firm, but also flexible container that takes us across a full year with active times of learning and engagement and times of integration and rest built in. So if that feels juicy, if that feels like something you need in your life, I will put that information down below and the link where you can schedule a phone call to talk all about it. Okay, and with that, let's dive in to intuition. So this is a class. It's a little different than the usual video you might see on YouTube if you are watching the replay. And so the invitation is to really engage with us, to participate in what we're walking through here. And we always love to begin with a practice, with an opportunity to drop in, to fully arrive here in this space and with this topic. And so we're going to jump into that right now. So wherever you are, just invite you to take a moment, set aside your distractions, settle your body into a position that feels supported and easeful. Finding a posture for practice. And by that, we feel most supported in practice when we are in that sweet spot between well supported, upright, alert, but also easeful. So we want to really sit into the structure of our body in the way that it's designed to hold us well. If you're sitting, that means sit bones firmly planted on the support below you, your spine as straight as it can be in this time, but not efforting, not holding yourself rigid, just allowing the structure of your body to hold you well. Feet firmly planted on the ground. If you're standing, finding a posture that allows you to feel stable and rooted, while again, also easeful. And in finding this balance between support and ease, alertness and rest, we can invite the muscles of our belly and of our chest and our shoulders and of our jaw to relax and to be soft. It's a vulnerable posture to allow the muscles of our belly to become soft, to allow our body to expand with the breath, because we're allowing the soft, vital places in our body to be unprotected in that moment. And so it can take a couple of breaths to invite that ease, that softness to come into our body. Allowing the firm structure of your body and the support below to hold you and support this vulnerability. So as you allow your body to relax, to begin to expand with the breath, and taking a couple of breaths, just noticing the sensation of being well supported by your body and by the structures below. And then we're gonna just go through a very simple scan, just internal process of noticing, of calling our attention inside. And I want to acknowledge that that can be challenging sometimes, particularly for those of us who have adapted to the stresses of the world by dissociating from the body, by learning to not pay attention to what we're feeling. So this is a gentle invitation, beginning with the breath, resting your attention on the sensation of the breath, and allowing that sensation to call your attention back from all the places that you've spent it today. Just allowing the movement of the breath into your body to call your attention here. And perhaps placing a hand or both hands on your body, perhaps the belly or the heart, and allowing the warmth and gentle pressure of your hand to help continue drawing your attention back from all the places you have been distracted today. To draw your attention here and to begin to notice the patterns of thought and any sensations you might be having in your head, in your mind. Continuing to follow the breath and bring the attention a little bit down, noticing sensations in your shoulders, noticing if they're asking for anything like a little twist or a little stretch, responding to that. Continuing to draw your attention slowly downward into your chest, to your heart space. Just noticing without judgment what you perceive here. Continuing to draw your attention down, past your ribs, your lungs, your belly. Taking another breath, intentionally relaxing the muscles of the belly. Continuing to bring your attention down, all the way down into your low belly. And we're going to pause here, resting our attention here in the belly for a couple of breaths. And I'm going to invite you to rest here, just noticing the sensations in your body in this moment. I'm just going to share a short reading from the book Evolutionary Herbalism, which works quite a bit with the intuition. The light of nature teaches us to become acutely aware of patterns within nature and to see the vital essence of a plant that unifies its part into a cohesive whole. As we will see, it is not the rational mind that sees this wholeness, but the intuitive heart, which understands through analogies, similarities, correspondences, and patterns. Whereas the intellect divides, the heart perceives unity. And taking another breath here, just invite you to reflect on this question. In this moment, how would you describe your relationship with your intuition? In this moment, how would you describe your relationship with your intuition? Let's take a couple of breaths to sit with that question. Just noticing what arises for you, not seeking a concrete answer, but simply noticing how the question feels and what arises for you. How would you describe your relationship with your intuition? And then taking 3 more breaths down into your belly. And coming back into this space together. So friends, I'm going to encourage you to pause this video right here and just take a little bit of time journaling what you noticed in that scan and journaling anything that might have come up with that question regarding your relationship with your intuition in this time. That can include memories that you have, specific instances where your intuition was at work or where you perhaps felt like it was not at work. Just taking a moment to capture what you notice, and then come on back and join me. Okay. So, intuition. I've been fascinated with this topic for about 10 years, ever since a moment when I came to the realization that I had almost entirely lost touch with my sense of intuition. It was during a time of great strife and misery in my life, and a protracted, years-long period of depression and difficulty. And I was in a time of wanting to reclaim myself and to really kind of work through the deep things that had been building up that I had not been addressing, had not been working with. And one of the first things I had to really grapple with is an acknowledgement that very likely for years, my intuition had been telling me that I needed to make these changes, that I needed to make some dramatic changes in my life, that I needed to take some action that was going to be difficult. And my conscious mind just wanted none of that, just did not want to deal with the difficulty of any of that. And so I stifled those intuitive feelings. I ignored them. I pushed them away. And one of the things that I've learned in observation and in study and in talking with other folks is that the intuition speaks to us in multiple ways. This is one of the things that we work on in the classes that I teach, is understanding the language of our intuition. It comes to us in many ways, many of them physiological, through the body, through the mind, through the emotions, through observations in the outside world. And when we ignore those messages, when we stifle them, a few things can happen. One, those messages can become much more insistent, particularly those that come through the body. And if we ignore them long enough, those messages become, it's like they become malignant, and they become so insistent that they begin to cause us harm. We begin to experience increased stress. We might experience gut dysfunction. We might experience depressions. We might experience mysterious pain in the body coming from ignoring everything in our system telling us that we need to take some action or move in a particular direction, and we're ignoring it. So I had experienced all of that over the course of several years. And at a certain point, all of those intuitive messages just kind of metastasized into these physiological challenges. And I stopped getting the clear information. It just became illness. And it was no longer clarity. It was no longer insight, information. It was no longer breadcrumbs I could follow along a path. It was just dysfunction. And so that's the second thing I realized, is that our intuition, when we ignore it long enough, will dull, and we'll stop being able to perceive those messages, and it'll just turn into badness, basically. And so I got into this point where I wanted to really confront these things, and had this insight, which was quite a surprise to me, that the place I needed to start was rebuilding my intuition. That was news to me. Didn't know it until I had this insight. So I did that. I worked very specifically with a variety of practitioners around rebuilding intuition, and learned quite a bit, and have continued to follow that thread for quite some time, researching the ways in which intuition is understood in different contexts, from the perspective of science, of spirituality, of culture, my own experience. And I've noticed a few things, some points of commonality, some patterns that show up from different places where intuition is being considered and studied. First, there's pretty widespread belief that intuition is important, that it's a valuable capacity that we have. Whether or not we fully understand it, whether or not it's fully acknowledged in different spaces, it is generally acknowledged to be real, first of all, and to be important. This really stood out to me when I was in graduate school and studying organizations and organizational leadership, and read a study that was done through a university that looked at how the leaders of major organizations and companies make decisions. And what is the process that they use to make major decisions that impact their whole organization, their whole company, and the many people that are involved. And the fascinating thing was that while there are, of course, many business tools that are available for making decisions, and specific facts and data and information that are drawn upon to make information, by and large, the common answer that came was, I follow my gut. I go with my gut. I follow my intuition. And there's an acknowledgement in that that number one, we often can't always have all of the information that we need. We can't necessarily draw together enough data to give us a complete and full picture of the decision we're trying to make and the possible directions that that decision might take us. We certainly can't see with certainty the outcomes of any given decision that we make into the future. And so, even though this was not the official decision-making strategy, many leaders identified going with their gut as a major part of how they make decisions, major decisions that impact many people. That was fascinating to me, to see the acknowledgement of the value of intuition, not only in our kind of day-to-day, individual lives, but in the lives of businesses and organizations and cultures. There's also generally a sense of confusion, sometimes disconnection, and as I shared about my own personal experience, sometimes absence of intuition in our life. That particularly when I talk with individuals who I'm working with, there's this sense that intuition is very important, but not necessarily consciously accessible. So I know it's important. I want to follow it. Sometimes I feel it, but it's very difficult to find. And sometimes I can't call on it when I need it. And a desire to build that capacity, right? A desire to increase our capacity with our intuition. Another set of insights about intuition that is really interesting for me when we look at how to apply it to the system of Reiki is looking at the ways in which intuition is understood, again, across these different fields of study. And largely what we see is that intuition is understood as an integration of all of the different ways that we perceive the world: the body, the mind, the heart, the physical sensations, the emotions, our observations of the world around us, our interactions with other people. That intuition is kind of the sum that is greater than all of those parts. It is a sense that comes out of the integration of all of those other senses, the coming together of all of these different ways that we perceive the world, ways that we might see as more commonplace, more ordinary: the body, the thoughts, the feelings, the perceptions of other people. And they come together into this, almost sixth sense that gives us the capacity to know things or to sense things or to feel certainty about things that we really shouldn't have any certainty about because we don't have all of the information, right? Many of us have had this experience where we just know which direction we're meant to take a decision, or where we're meant to step back and not engage, or where we are meant to do something that seems really wild or really illogical, right? Have you ever made a decision that you just knew was right, but it seemed very illogical on the surface? It just did not seem to align well with the facts or the data at hand, and yet knew it was the right decision. So that is this alchemy, this integration of all of your ways of knowing into this particular way of knowing that gives you access to information outside of the day-to-day. And there's this understanding that while the language of intuition is mysterious and that it utilizes many sensations in the body, that it's actually centered in 3 specific parts of the body that represent those different ways of knowing. There's recent scientific data that shows us that the brain is not the only place that has neurological capacity, thinking capacity, that the neurons that allow our brain to think in the way that we understand it also exist in 2 other parts of our body. That is the heart and the gut. That the heart and the gut also have neurons and are sending neurological information back and forth to the brain. The gut in particular is sending a ton of information up to our brain. And so when we talk about having a gut feeling, right, with the intuition, this is literal. We are having feelings in our gut that is sending information to our brain that is helping us make decisions. Same with the heart. If we talk about following our heart, that's another way of talking about intuition, right? The sensations of our heart that give us a sensation of expansiveness, of possibility, of a direction to move in. And then that sends information to our brain that says, hey, move in that direction, right? So we can see it even in the language of the gut feeling and following our heart. And these three brains are, again, representing our physical body, our mental body, our emotional body, and the integration between them. Now, this structure, this map, if you will, of the three brains shows up in many traditions. We see it in spiritual traditions and cultural traditions going back centuries, millennia, well before we had the scientific capacity to say there are neurons in your gut. And in particular, we see it in the traditions that are the foundation for the system of Reiki. So inside of the system of Reiki, the three brains, the three neurological centers of the body, are called the three diamonds. It is the three energy centers that are the primary focus of many Japanese spiritual arts going back, again, millennia, and linked specifically to the creation story in the Shinto tradition. The Shinto tradition being the indigenous Japanese spiritual tradition that's existed in Japan as long as there's been record keeping, certainly, of people in Japan, so carefully and intrinsically tied up in the culture of Japan that it's just permeated everywhere. And so in the creation story, in the Shinto tradition, we have this symmetry between the universe, the earth and the universe, and the human body. We have the solid earth, which is associated with our gut, with our belly. The energy center in the belly is the place we start. It's the hara, it's the rooted place. It's our grounded place, connected to earth and connected to our physical body. Then there's the heavens, there's space, there's spaciousness up and above the earth. That is connected to the second diamond here in the head, connected with possibility, with vision, with wide open spaciousness. And in the Shinto creation story, we begin with this disconnection between earth and heaven, this chaos between the rooted earth place and the spacious reaching place of the universe of heaven all around, that they're disconnected, they're not in harmony with each other. And the thing which brings these two into harmony is the heart, is this place of connection and compassion that comes with humans, right? We have to come into the story at some point. So we bring our heart and we get well rooted into the earth. We get well supported by our physical body. We root down into the earth and then we can reach up and out into the spacious places like a well-rooted tree that can then reach far and wide up and out. And when those two places are in harmony with each other, we bring our attention here to the third diamond in the heart. And that basic energy map that is seen as an analogy to the natural world is the foundation of all of the practices within the system of Reiki and within many other systems that are longstanding in Japan. Now, bringing it back to intuition. Again, we have these three brains, these three places where neurological information are shared with us. And we see those three brains mirrored in these three energy centers that are the map, the foundation of the system of Reiki. And what we'll see when we look through the 5 elements of the system, when we work with the practices within the system, we're going to work with one such practice today. We see that a big part of the purpose and intended outcome of these practices is integration of these 3 neurological centers, these 3 brains, these 3 diamonds, bringing those 3 parts of ourselves back into alignment with each other, into full and freely moving communication with each other. There are many, many, many benefits to our life, many outcomes of doing this. One of them is the strengthening of our intuition, of our capacity to remember our inherent connection with the web of life, with the world around us. Because in these traditions, we are not seen as isolated. We're not seen as purely individual. We are seen as being intimately connected with the world at all times. And the challenge is that we forget. The challenge is that we can get stuck in our head, or we can dissociate from our body, or we're distracted from all of the challenges and joys of our life, or we're carrying pain and trauma that dissociate us between our body, our mind, and our heart as a survival strategy. And this dissociation can be incredibly beneficial when we need to navigate incredibly difficult things. However, it disconnects the parts of ourself that are meant to be connected and integrated, that are meant to work together to help us to navigate our life, to help us navigate our relationships, our connections with each other, to help us make decisions through an intuitive process. And so within the system of Reiki, we have a series of 5 elements, practices inside of each of those elements that allow us to gently, over time, with consistency, reintegrate these important centers of our awareness, these important ways in which we operate in the world and perceive everything around us. In doing so, we gain access to a greater pool of wisdom than what we simply carry in our own brain, in our own mind, the data we have collected through our life. We open ourselves to access to wisdom from the wider web of life, and an ability to integrate that wisdom, to bring it into our system, and to digest it, to work with it, and to make meaning of it for our life. You perhaps have noticed in the moments when you have felt your intuition active, that intuition is not linear. It's not literal often. It's typically metaphoric, poetic even in how it shows up for us. It's circular, it's spirals. It speaks to us in puzzles and riddles. All of this is a function of the integration of all these different parts of ourselves. If we were only working with our mind, we would have a very linear form of information coming to us, right? But we're bringing in the spaciousness of the heart. We're bringing in the rootedness of the gut and all of the tangled webs that can come with integrating with the earth. And so we get this beautiful, poetic, metaphoric, circular, non-linear form of communication, which is joyful and pleasurable and beautiful, and sometimes really confusing. Like, what the heck is this message that's coming to me, right? Perhaps you've had experiences like that. And so cultivating our relationship with our intuition, which means firstly, reintegrating these different parts of ourselves gently, slowly over time if necessary, particularly if we have a habit or a history of dissociating and disconnecting from our body. I can't underestimate the importance of respecting and acknowledging if that's true for ourselves or for other people. That trauma and challenges and protracted difficult situations can cause us to lose this integration between our body, mind, and heart. And there's good reasons for that. There's survival reasons for that. And it causes us to lose access to something important. And so just want to name that if that is true for you, that you might need a little bit of additional support in working through the sorts of things I'm talking about. You'll definitely need some kindness and patience for yourself. Working with self-compassion is one of the foundational primary practices within the system of Reiki, partly for this reason, because we need to give ourselves a lot of loving kindness and space when we are relearning these patterns. Okay, so I'm just going to take a pause there and give you a chance to catch up if you are taking any notes. If you have any questions that have come up about anything that I've said, I would really love to have an opportunity to address them. So you can go ahead and drop that in the comments. We continue the conversation in that space. So I'm just going to take a moment, have a little water, take a breath, give you a chance to see what reflections, what questions come up for you, what stories of your own experience have arisen as I'm talking away. All right. Okay, so we're going to move into a practice in a moment. We'll close our time together with that practice. What I've noticed in working with the system of Reiki for the years that I have, and specifically applying it to this question of intuition, is that there are 5, let's call them tools. It's an imperfect word, but let's use the term tools. There are 5 tools that we draw on in any of the practices of the system of Reiki, but specifically in applying to developing our intuition. Those tools are embodiment, so paying attention to our body, bringing our awareness back into our body, which is part of what we started with in our opening practice. Attention. Where are we paying attention? So often we're paying attention outside of ourselves in a distracted way. And so we're training ourselves with all of the practices in the system of Reiki to focus our attention on what matters most, on what is going to give us the greatest access to those intuitive capacities. And we're training our mind to focus our attention where we need it to be in a given moment. So embodiment, attention, intention. What is it that we're intending by what we're up to? And intention, we could do a whole other class on the way that intention is held inside of the system of Reiki, but I'll just say for now that we want to hold our intention open. Sometimes we can get very, very, very narrow with the intention that we set for a practice. Sometimes that's appropriate. But when we're working with building our intuition, or we're working with kind of balancing and coming back into wholeness, or working with a healing practice, we want to let our intention be wide open so that we allow possibility to come into the space that might not come to our awareness, our attention, if we're very narrowly focused on an intention. And so a wide open intention might look like, I intend to be open to whatever I need in this moment. I intend to be open to what my intuition wants to tell me, and I trust myself to be able to notice what comes up. That's a very wide open intention, as opposed to, I intend to get the answer to this very specific question, right? Or I intend to heal this pain in my knee, right? That's very, very narrow. So we want to hold a wide and spacious intention. Fourth, our imagination. Imagination cannot be understated as an incredibly important and powerful tool that we use, right? Being able to bring in the power of the mind and the capacity of our mind to envision something that is not currently, presently, or physically here with us, to bring poetic and metaphoric imagination, or to bring visionary imagination, where we are imagining something that has yet to come. We use the imagination to tour the inside of our body when we can't actually get in there and look. We use the imagination to create metaphors and images to help us to understand complex concepts that we can then bring into our practice in ways that are digestible and that are more simple. So the imagination, incredibly important tool. And finally, once we have worked with all of these things, coming back into our body, learning to focus our attention, bring our attention back from distraction, set a wide open, spacious intention full of possibility. And we've drawn up the power of our imagination to help to facilitate that. The final tool is how we respond. It's our response to all of that. Because we can do all of that, open ourselves to intuitive information coming through. We might perceive that information, and then we might do nothing with it, right? Which was what I was experiencing years ago when I was getting all of this intuitive information and I was choosing to ignore it, not act on it. But we might also simply be confused by it, right? What is this message that I'm getting? Why did this symbol or image come to my imagination? Why am I feeling this impulse that feels so counterintuitive to what the facts are telling me about the situation? Why am I, feeling like I actually shouldn't act on this thing that I'm being asked for? It could be very confusing, right? And so we want to be able to cultivate a habit of response when we receive intuition, particularly when we've asked for an intuitive message to come through, which we're going to do in a moment in our practice. We want to make some response. Now, that response can be really tiny. Okay. It doesn't have to be the full expression of whatever it is, right? So maybe your intuition seems to be telling you to do something really risky, really difficult, something where you don't actually see if it's possible or not, right? You can't jump right into that giant thing. But could you make one small gesture in its direction, right? Could you journal about what it might be? Could you do a stream of consciousness journaling that just allows your imagination to play with this possibility and to, set aside the idea that it's impossible and just play with it for a while? Let your imagination work with it for a little while. You're not taking any direct action on the difficult thing. You're just spending some time allowing it to live with you, live with the question for a little while. Or perhaps there is some small action that you can take in the direction of the bigger thing that you're feeling. Maybe if you're confused about the message that you're getting, you could have a conversation with a trusted friend. Ask them, what comes up for you, or what do you think I'm missing? You know me really well. Is there something that you know about me that I might be missing? Just give yourself an opportunity to be with that confusion and to name it with another person so that it comes out of your own head and you've taken some action in its direction. The action, the response can be very small. Again, it can be as simple as just writing down what you noticed, right? Maybe even putting it somewhere where you can see it. But what happens when we respond, even in a tiny way, is firstly, it keeps that intuitive information alive for us, because even when we have a strong and powerful intuitive response to something, if we move on about our day and fall back into distraction and all of the demands of our life and all of the commitments that we need to focus on and all the work we need to get done, even a powerful moment and insight can be forgotten. We can lose it. This has happened to me so many times. I'll be like, wow, that was so for that idea, that inspiration, that message, that intuition, that was so powerful. There's no way I'm going to forget that. And then I don't write it down. I don't engage with it. I don't take any action in that moment. And I try to come back to it a few days later, gone, totally gone. No idea. Just not available anymore, right? So when we take some small action in the direction of the intuition that we've received, that gut feeling we've received, or that heart following that we've received, or that idea that we've received, we take some small action. It helps to imprint that message into our body and into our memory so that it's accessible to us, especially if we've written it down. Now it's in a tangible place, it's accessible to us. The other thing that this does, and this is really important, is that it gives a feedback signal to this system, right? To this integrated system of gut, head, and heart that says, I'm listening, I'm paying attention. The information you're giving me matters to me. I will take action on it. I'm not going to ignore it. You don't have to turn up the dial and make it painful. You don't have to turn that message into a painful message. I hear it. I'm paying attention. I'm going to respond as best I can in this moment. And when we do that, And I can only say this from personal experience. This is not scientifically proven. I cannot send you to a study that says that this is true, right? This is strictly from my own observations of my experience. When I take some small, or maybe big, but at least small response to that intuitive feeling, those feelings increase. My system says, okay, you're paying attention, so I'm going to reward you by continuing to feed you information. All right, I'm going to give you more of this resource, this benefit, because you're paying attention to it. Right? And I'm going to keep that information coming to you in a way that feels accessible and spacious and creative and powerful, rather than through the vehicle of pain or disorder or illness. Okay? So the response that we make when we have an intuitive response is very important. Okay. So with those 5 tools in mind, we're going to do a practice. This is going to be a variation on the foundational practice of the system of Reiki. If you have been in classes with me before or practice sessions before, you have invariably done some variation of this practice, because it's where we begin all the time, because it is the foundation. And we're going to use that foundational practice, which is called Joshin Kokyuho, or a method to focus the mind. We're going to begin there, and then we're going to let that practice take us through this map that we've been working with of the gut, the head, the heart. This is our intuition map, our energy map. And then we're going to allow that to open us up to a question that you might have. There might be a situation in your life that you would like some insight on. It can be something specific. It can be non-specific. It can be just, what insight could I use in this moment, right? But if there is a decision that you're working on making, or there's something that you feel confused about in your life, or there's, maybe you're ready for a change in some way and you're looking for some guidance on that, then this can be a place to explore that. Sound good? Great. All right. So we're going to spend about 10 minutes or so in this practice. This is one that you could spend a lot more time in. You could expand this in your own time. So our intention here is to present it to you, give you a template to work with, and then you can take it and run with it when you have some time. All right. So beginning with, again, setting our posture in a position for practice where we feel well supported by the structures below us, by the structure of our body. Allowing our body to be upright in an easeful way. Allowing the structure of our skeleton, of our spine, and the support of the structures below us to hold us well enough that we can let our belly be soft. Taking a couple of breaths to really invite the muscles of the belly and of the chest to relax. This can be so challenging because we're so used to keeping this place tight and boundaried. So it can take a couple of breaths to invite the belly to relax, to be soft, so that the belly can expand with the breath, gently contract with the exhale in a natural way. Let's take a couple of breaths practicing here. And as you allow your belly to soften and rest into the structure of your body and the support below, the earth below that, begin to gently bring your breath into this posture, allowing the breath to flow in and down, to move all the way down into the low belly as you inhale. Your body and your breath coming into alignment with each other. Taking a couple of breaths, inviting this deep alignment between body and breath. And then we can bring our mind into this practice, resting our attention on the sensation of the breath as it moves in and down, allowing that sensation to call our attention back from all the places we have spent it, drawing our focus in and down, and resting our attention in the low belly. It can be helpful to place a hand here just below the belly button, letting the pressure and warmth of our hand draw our attention in and down, finding the energy center a couple inches below the belly button and deep in the center of the body, focusing our attention in the hara. Let's just practice this for a few rounds of breath. And as you continue to breathe in and down, drawing your attention into the body, down into the low belly, I invite you to sense or imagine that here in the center of your low belly, you find a spark of light. This bright spark of life, shining bright and clear and luminous here in the low belly at this energy center, the hara. So for the next few rounds of breath, I invite you to practice sensing or imagining this spark of life, bright, clear, and luminous, shining brightly in the center of your low belly at all times. Your own spark of life, connected to the full web of life around you. Let's practice sensing or imagining this spark, however it shows up to you today. And as you continue to breathe in this way, following the breath in and down, resting in your low belly, welcomed home here into the spark of your own true self, your own whole and true spark of life. Begin to sense or imagine that as you breathe in, this spark begins to grow brighter. It expands in all directions. And as you exhale, it continues to expand, to fill you and surround you. With each breath, this wave of light, as you breathe in and down, connecting to this spark, it grows brighter, expands in all directions. And as you exhale, it expands further to fill you and to surround you. Each breath, a gentle pulse, a gentle wave of light. Let's practice this for 5 rounds of breath. Noticing that as this light continues to expand, bright, clear, and luminous from your center, the sensation of rootedness, of groundedness, of wide openness, making more room inside of you and rooting deeply into the earth below. And noticing too that this light is expanding upward. And so for the next round of breath, I'm going to invite you as you breathe in and down and connect with this spark. When you exhale, imagine this spark of light rising up through the center of your body and settling in your head. And if you wish, you can place the other hand at your head, either your forehead or the back of your head, the top, wherever it feels comfortable. With one hand on the belly and one hand on the head, you can follow this light as it moves between these 2 points, breathing into the belly, connecting with this spark. And as you breathe out, imagining that spark rising up the center of your body and resting in the head before moving back down on the inhale to the belly and cycling this spark between these 2 points with each round of breath. Let's practice this for 7 or 8 breaths. As you continue to breathe, shifting your attention between these 2 points in the belly and the head, imagining the spark moving between them. Just invite you to notice the sensation of integration, of harmony between the body and the mind, the rooted, grounded place, and the visionary, reaching place, the place of possibility and spaciousness above. You can spend as much time here as you like, harmonizing these 2 aspects of yourself, your body, your mind, your roots and your reach, the earth and the heavens above. And when you feel ready to shift to our final stop on the map, I invite you to bring your attention to your heart. Allowing the spark of light to rest here. Continuing to breathe in and down. This time, your spark expanding in all directions from the heart. This spacious, connected territory of compassion, well supported by the foundation below, and well resourced by the spacious, wide openness above. Let's rest here in the heart for a few breaths. This territory of connection and compassion, bringing the heart into this integration of the body and the mind. Relaxing here in this space. Now you can pause the video here and rest in your heart as long as you like. And then when you come back, I invite you to bring to mind an event or a situation or a question that you would like some clarity about, some insight. If there is not a specific event or question or situation, then simply the wide openness of your life. Where could I use insight in this moment? And taking a few breaths to focus on this situation or this question, this decision, or this intention to receive insight that's most needed about your life. Let's take a few breaths here, just bringing this to mind and heart. And when you feel ready, when you feel connected to this intention, perhaps setting an intention to be well connected to the insight that you most need regarding this situation or this question. I invite you to ask for a direct intuitive experience related to this question to come to you in the very near future. Now, how do you ask for this intuitive experience? There's various ways. You can say the words in your mind or out loud, speaking to your full system, your true self, that spark of light, speaking to the spark itself, which represents your integrated and whole self, asking this whole self of yours, and please requesting intuitive insight, information to come to me about this question in the very near future. Perhaps words don't feel as comfortable for you. Perhaps it's sitting with an image or sitting with a sensation or being curious, sitting with the sensation of curiosity. Whatever works for you to ask your true and whole self, the spark of light, your integrated self, to receive insight sometime in the very near future regarding this situation. You can be in this process for as long as you like, pausing the video if you need to. But when you feel that you have made this request in a way that feels good for you, take a few breaths and consciously let it go. Come back to the sensation of the breath, the release of the exhale. Let go of the question that you've just asked. Let go of any expectation that this question be answered in any particular way. Let go of judgment about the nature of the question. Just let it go. Sometimes this is the hardest part. And take a couple of breaths here. Come back into the room. Now, strongly suggest that you pause the video here and spend some time journaling, or we're almost done. You can wait till the end, but spend a little bit of time journaling whatever came forward for you in that process. And then as you move throughout your day, as you move throughout the next few days, I invite you to simply pay attention. Keeping a journal is a really effective way of reminding ourselves to pay attention and then capturing what we've noticed. Again, the intuition speaks to us in ways that are often metaphoric, that are nonlinear, that are not always straightforward. Sometimes we literally see a bumper sticker on a car that gives us the specific answer we need for our question, but more likely it's going to be something a little bit more mysterious, a little bit more mystical. So it can be helpful to really track what we're noticing, because there might be a puzzle that we need to put together around it. And so just setting an intention that to just be in a space of noticing, of paying attention as you move throughout your week, with openness, and see what comes forward for you. Remembering that the intuition can speak through our body, through physical sensations in the body. It can speak to us through feelings, through emotions. It can speak to us through thoughts, through insights, through images that come through our mind. And it can speak to us through our interactions with the world, things that other people say to us spontaneously for seemingly no reason. Things that we see out in the world, like that bumper sticker or something in nature or some interaction that we witnessed. So we're paying attention to all of those things and just see what happens. And if you are willing to share, I would love to hear what happens for you. You can come back to this video and you can share in the comments what happened, or you can reach out. We can have a phone conversation about it if you'd like to have a more private chat. Before I forget, the most important piece, when you have gathered what you have noticed, if you do feel like you've received some sort of intuition, some sort of guidance about this question, take some small action. Make one small or big, but at least one small response to what you've noticed. The journaling can be the response, conversation with another person, or taking the action that your intuition is inviting you to. Remembering that that response is incredibly important for training ourselves to follow our intuition, giving ourselves affirmation that we are paying attention so that that intuitive guidance continues to come. You can return to this practice anytime you like here on the video. And if you want to continue to take this work deeper, explore intuition in the system of Reiki and all the other elements in that system, there are many ways that you can work with us, including continuing to be on these free monthly classes. Again, that information will be down in the comments. And if you'd like to have a chat about any of the other ways that you might work with us or any questions that are up, feel free to schedule a call with me. I'd love to be in connection. Thank you so much for being with me in today's class and today's practice. We'll be back with this class again next month and probably next week with another regular YouTube video. And until then, as you move into your day, into your intuitive noticings, and into whatever the week holds for you, may you be deeply provisioned for that journey. Thank you so much for being with me. I look forward to being with you next time. Love you. Bye-bye.